Welcome. Tiny Hands, Big Dreams, here on the homestead with a controversial conversation. So, we thought it was good to touch on the subject of the controversy, really, of having animals that you're going to harvest, you're gonna slaughter. And there's a lot of interesting points on that. There's morality issues.
With practicality.
Practicality. There's an odd disassociation of people to the animal intentionally. Um, so let's get into it. Let's just have a conversation on that. In the spirit of the controversial conversations, if you have a differing opinion, that's fine. That's great. They exist. Comment. Make a video even about it. Like either way, don't just well, I disagree and click the dislike button and move on. That's it's lame.
Why do you disagree?
Put
Why
your
do you
opinion.
dislike?
Comment with your opinion. That is part of this. Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of ways.
Yeah.
This is one viewpoint.
Yeah.
So we came across a video the other day of a homesteader, and he had a pig. Clearly, it's part of his herd. He's raised it its whole life. Had a health issue, and he goes, okay, so I have to go deal with it. And then spent a very long time getting the pig in a trailer.
Which is not easy.
It's a big pig.
Moving pigs can be a giant pain.
Yeah.
So we're sort of laughing about it. Okay.
Couldn't walk well. Had a hoof problem or something. Okay. He's probably it's probably like one of his breeding stock. Like he's spending a lot of time on this, and then he goes and he gets it finally in the trailer. I think it was like an all day thing. Only to see that he takes it to a processor. Oh.
And we were both just like, wow.
So
okay.
And it struck both of us really, really just like, what on earth are you doing? Why would you do that? So one, you have an animal that's in pain. And the first thing you're going to do is subject it to a ton of stress.
And this pig just really wanted to go back in her house and stay there and never come out again. It was clear.
It was very clear. So you're going to cause a ton of stress to the poor animal. Simply moving it from its house, getting it into a trailer, a bumpy ride to somewhere, I think it was fairly far away, to a processor, out of a trailer.
Out of the trailer.
Facility.
To have it processed.
Which on the practical side is not good for the product, which is the meat that you're trying to get out of it. And on the other side of it, there's an incredible amount of stress and hardship you're causing an animal that didn't need to happen. I guess our viewpoint is if the animal is injured or things, it cannot continue on in life, it can't be helped, then the most humane answer is to probably end the pig, like right where it is.
Yep.
Where it's relaxed, it's in its home, it's unawares.
And from a practicality standpoint, if your end goal is going to be to process the pig, either way, the amount of time and effort it took to load up the pig.
Oh yeah, it was like all day. It just doesn't make any sense to us.
It doesn't. No, I guess this is all from the standpoint of we process. Ideally, our dream is to process all of our own meat.
It is.
We eat a lot of meat. This is not coming from.
We also have issues with the quality as done by others.
Yes. Now, there's probably a larger conversation about eating meat, about the meat industry, especially in the U.S., about all of that. Now, it's touchy, even for a controversial conversation. We eat a lot of meat. I strive to do a very good job with both the raising of the animals and the processing of that meat.
We try to give the animals the best possible life they can.
The most
which
humane
is way better than the meat industry.
Yes, the most humane end possible.
Yes.
And to also end up with the best product at the end.
Which, yeah.
It comes back to
which is the healthiest
how that is all processed.
Consume.
Yeah. So it's important to us. And
it is very
all
important.
of those parts are very important. I've had a lot of people sort of go like, well, how do you name your animals? Like, how could you
Oh
name an
yeah. Or the
animal?
well, I just couldn't. The I just couldn't.
Well, the I just couldn't come from several points, I guess. And I talk to a lot of people who are starting out with animals that they intend to harvest, and they ask all these questions. Like, well, I just can't get over like the emotions of it. Like, I've raised this, and I'm like, the only thing that I will say is you shouldn't get over the emotions. You should not ever get to the point of not feeling something when you take the life of an animal, especially an animal you have raised.
That is a human reaction.
You should have that feeling.
That shows a level of empathy, of respect, of.
So our first big animals that we raised were our pigs in Tennessee. Now we didn't have them from. I mean, they weren't born on our property, but we had them from like 8 weeks.
We got them from a large loaf of bread.
And we loved them. And they were our pets, honestly.
Yeah, we go out and
they were handled and they were loved.
And play with them and feed them, treats all the time.
And we absolutely loved them. And when it came down to like, okay, well, we need to harvest them. Like, there's no. It was the plan. It was always the plan. And I remember we had the conversation. Do we really want to do this?
And we paused for a long time.
Hard.
Like, do we have to do this? Are we going to do this? Is this really the best decision?
Like, I remember us asking ourselves, each other, like, will this change us? Like, to take the life of an animal that we love, because we loved them.
Yeah.
And when it came down to, I remember the conversation of either we do this, we do the best we can, and we honor them by processing the meat the best I possibly can, or we sell them knowing that someone else is going to do that in whatever way they do.
Probably far more crudely.
Possibly, yes.
Possibly with more waste.
Or we just don't eat them, which was sort of it was a non-option for us. We didn't have the space to keep them forever. And okay, so you keep an animal forever
until
what?
It just dies of old age? Like what?
And some people think that is the correct answer, and that's a different conversation.
Then those people don't eat meat.
Or they do, and they go to a store. And that is another problem I have of people who say, I can't process an animal that I've raised. I'm going to go buy my bacon at the store. And
in a lot of places, it is illegal to take video of these feedlots because they've passed laws doing so, because they are so horrible. So, yeah, we know that.
And
we've seen some of these.
I mean, when you look at that comes back to both the moral side of it. I don't like an animal to suffer, to have a poor life, to be unwell. And I also don't want us to be unwell from eating that.
Side story, when we met, and we would start to like hang out together, and then we were like, okay, we're gonna like eat together, cook, and then we kind of like we both sort of said the same thing of like, I don't really eat pork, and neither of us really wanted to say why, because it was odd, but basically we finally did.
Back before, like, that was when we still had a filter, and we didn't want to seem crazy.
Filtered between each other. We want to seem crazy, the other one, but and it was like, well, one of us finally said it of like, I don't know, when I eat pork, I feel sad. And then the other one's like, yeah,
yes,
me too. And we started to realize that maybe pigs are not terribly far off. I mean, there's medical things where they'll use like pig hearts and things like in humans because they're
genetically
compatible. Speaking, that perhaps some of the hormones get stored in the meat.
The fear, stress.
All of that gets stored, and when you eat that gets released. And we were literally simply picking up on that animal has led a very fearful, hard, and kind of terrible life.
And probably the same for its end as well.
Commercial pork is known as one of the worst.
Yeah. I mean, this goes for all animals. I guess we're just using pig as the example.
Sure.
It's what we've had the most
experience
with.
We didn't eat pork for a long time. Finally, we had a friend that raised a pig.
Giant pig.
Giant pig. And he kept it off in the corner of his property, and he got he gave it all the food it would want. Someone would give him free food. And he'd feed it donuts and things, and it was this giant happy pig just lumbering around.
Man.
We're like, well, so we traded him some stuff for a giant chunk of it. I traded him a generator for a large ham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the first thing we had was actually the pork chops.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, I grew up, man, when it was pork night, it was, fine, I'll eat the pork. Pork chops were sad and dry. A pork roast was sad and dry.
This is the other part of it. Commercial pork is gross. We
just
won't
tastes bad.
eat it anymore.
It's not good.
Your heritage meats are deep red in color. They're more like
It looks like a steak.
They're more like the finest beef you've ever had in a nice restaurant, and they're delectable and they're wonderful. They're incredible. You can't buy them, so unless you raise your own, that's it. You're not going to get to try that to even know the difference. But we had some of his pork, and we both
amazing.
And we ate, and we just, one, it was delicious, and two, then we were like waiting around like, and the next day we're like,
do we feel sad? Do we feel pretty happy, actually. That's pretty good.
Actually, we feel great. That pig maybe led a happy life.
No, and if you talk about genetics, I don't think that this was some perfect heritage breed either. No. It was just pig.
Yeah, it was just pig.
It was a big pink pig.
It was a
big pink pig. I got no idea.
Yeah, I don't remember anymore.
But at some point you start. I mean, that's sort of a different subject of the genetics as far as the meat. But
and then we got more from him, and it was the same thing, and it was happy pig, and we even took it to Thanksgiving dinner, and we gave it to what is sometimes a rather controversial set of conversations around a Thanksgiving table of people that will generally not agree.
And they seemed pretty happy.
Everyone was all happy and pleased, and things were like,
maybe it was the ham.
Maybe it was the ham.
Forgot about that. Yeah. So
anecdotal, but you know what? It's
yeah. But I think
tested true on our lives.
Yeah, there's not a lot of things I'm super one way or the other about. I like to leave a lot of room open for different opinions, options, methods. But for me, the idea of raising an animal and then sending it to someone else to end its life and process
in a very rough mechanical way, because they do
unfeeling. They don't care. Like going back to that, you should always care about the animals. They don't care. Most don't. I'm sure some do, but most processors, they can't care about every animal because it's a job. Because it's very.
It just walked in the door. There's no relation there.
Yeah. So to do that feels incredibly against my nature.
It also dishonors the animal of like, I don't know. I don't even know how to put that.
No, I think that's correct. It does. I am incredibly thoughtful about it. I know a lot of people will be like, well, you shouldn't take an animal's life. If that's the argument, you have a different perspective on life. But from the perspective of we are raising all of our own meat, the best we can do is to absolutely love the animal and then honor its life the best we can.
Yeah.
And that's what I always try to do. So, I mean, we name our animals, and that's another thing. We'll talk about, like, well, how could you possibly, I could never kill an animal that I've named. And
so people will just intentionally not name
They won't name the animal. They won't interact. Like, oh, I keep the pigs that I'm going to slaughter, far away from the house, far away from us. We don't interact with them.
So there's this intentional disassociation, which is purely on the side of the human.
The animal doesn't know it's going to die.
The animal just
doesn't know.
Doesn't get loved. It just doesn't get the attention. It just sort of like, I just sort of live here. Is that fair to the animal based on and this is a very introspective, a weakness in one's self?
But also, I mean, yes, the animal, but is it also fair to you as the person raising the animal? And I would be so sad to not have those kind of relationships with our animals. Like, well, I just feel like I would be I would be so sad because I'd be missing out on that.
There's we have like tons of like videos and things, and we interact with our animals all the time.
I mean, we have 2 pigs that we are planning on harvesting in the next couple weeks, simply because the freezer's empty. And it's hard. It's incredibly difficult. And these are the first pigs we've raised from, they were born here. We have raised them from the very beginning.
They were bred here. They were born here.
We saved one's life as a little piglet.
One of the pigs, had a terrible infection, a hole in its jaw thing. We had to save its life.
Yep. So wrap her up in a little towel.
Carried around.
So we are very attached to them. We care very much.
That doesn't mean we can just keep it to wander around forever.
Or send it to someone else.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the part that really, like, I cannot imagine doing that. There's also the practical, so there's the moral part, which is pretty simple. I think it's a complete disservice to the animal. I think that you are also then removing yourself from the equation, which comes back to you don't want to do it.
And it's right, and it's work, and it's hard.
Well, but from a moral perspective, you don't want to take the animal's life.
No.
I'm like, well, no, we don't want to.
But simply making somebody else do it doesn't change the reality.
It doesn't change that the animal has died.
It only changes that you don't have the ability to understand that as a hard thing and be able to give, the respect to the animal, giving it a name, interacting with it. In the meanwhile, the same ending is going to happen.
Yeah. And even if you decide you're not going to eat that animal and you're going to keep it forever, unless you don't eat any meat, some animal has died for your dinner. And now you're saying one animal is worth more than the other. And now that gets into a weird, sticky.
But by doing that, you're saying, oh, just buy it from the grocery store.
An animal still had to die.
But then that much meat that you eat had to be raised in worse conditions, life of terrible fear and poor nutrition and a crappy lot, and then die in generally a really sad and depressing kind of way. You are now helping that system do that to more animals.
Yeah.
It's just like I watched that guy put that pig in a trailer. And I'm like, what are you doing?
I mean,
if the pig is injured and things, the nicest thing you could do is end that pig's life in a millisecond.
In its little house.
In its little house.
And calm.
That it doesn't even realize happened.
Nope. That is the absolute best thing you can possibly do. And yes, it is hard to do. I mean,
that is a controversy.
I say this, you are typically the one who has that particular role in the animal processing.
I do not like it.
No. Now, I'll do the small animals, and I do not like it. Even when it's a mean rooster, like, I still don't like it. And there's still paws, and there's still a lot of feelings involved.
What was it the Native Americans used to like have like prayers and things that they would say to the animals is like, thank you for your life. Yeah. What we do is
I do in my own head.
Yeah, it's not entirely different.
I have my own ways of handling that, of thanking the animal, which people are like, well, why would you I heard someone say, well, why would you thank the animal? They didn't ask for this or something. I'm like, no, you're right, but I can still be grateful. I can still honor the animal. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
So the reality is that we are omnivores, we eat meat. We can then try to at least be the most conscientious and caring versions of that.
Yeah.
And that's controversial.
Which is odd to me, I guess. Now, this may not be a conversation that if you're living in a city, you've even thought about. And that's fine. I don't really expect you to think about it. But if you are a homesteader, if you are someone who's like, I want to be self-sufficient, I'm going to raise my own meat, and you raise that animal and you send it to a processor, sorry, but you're missing this incredibly important part.
Now there's this is not a hard fast thing if you have to do a thing. But there's a lot of, well, I don't have this or I don't have that, and I hear the excuses.
The practical, like, I can't.
The excuses start to roll out, and basically, even if so, well, I don't have the kitchen. You could give that person a kitchen. There'd be a different excuse. Well, I don't have this. You could give them,
Yeah.
all of the things. They would just keep coming up with excuses. So it's
Some
not
would.
the exact excuse sometimes that is the issue. It is overcoming
The feeling,
the feeling, the fear,
the unknown,
the anxiety, whatever it may be.
Now, there's some of that for sure, but there's also people who, I mean, maybe this is a slightly different conversation, but there are people who say, I don't have all of the correct equipment. Because when you go on YouTube to look up how to process an animal, because I did this before I knew how to.
Right.
And you look, and everybody has all of the perfect equipment. And I'm like, I don't have the perfect equipment.
You don't need to follow that.
No, and it took me a long time to get over the fact of, like, I don't have any of this.
Oh, I want to raise meat chickens. Well, then I have to have this, and I have to do this
Well, even
thing.
just the...
And I have to do the chicken plucker, and I have to do the thing, or a pig.
Oh, yeah.
I have to have the giant drum to scald it, and I have to burn it, and I have to scrape it.
You don't have to. That's just the way that you might want to do it, but that is not a have to.
It is not a have to. So we do it. Folding table.
Well, we did. I mean, for the slaughtering of visceration component of it is outside on a folding table with a couple knives
and a garden hose.
And a pressure washer. That's a contract.
Pressure washer is a nice thing. You don't have to have a pressure washer.
But there's some things we use.
You could use a garden hose and a scrub brush. You clean the outside of the pig. It keeps the contamination down.
But as far as the butchering, which is then completely on me, that's typically like full. You help with the rest, and then once it's second day, that's on me. The processing of the meat. So one, you don't have to do it the way the USDA says you do. That's the fun part. That's the part where you're like, I don't. You send it off to a processor, you get it back.
There's a cut sheet
in all of these perfect cuts,
and they're like, do you want this or this, this or this? And you say how much of each you want. More of this, more of this, more of this, more of that.
Yeah.
And that's your only choices.
And when you're doing it yourself, you have infinite choices.
There are
how
cuts
you want to
that
process.
You cannot get from that butcher or from the USDA that are
fantastic.
In fact, there's some that we could be considered the absolute best and tastiest bits that are utterly destroyed by the USDA cut process.
Yeah.
It was not designed for optimum flavor. It was designed for economy. It was designed for... Yeah, that's probably it.
I think that's probably it.
Yeah, it's fast and it's repeatable.
Yeah. So you get a lot more options that way. But as far as being able to do it, I spent years doing it in a bus.
In a bus?
A bus kitchen. Real small.
Yeah, literally an RV kitchen.
It's real small. It is not perfect.
Table, a large Coleman cooler. Put pieces in, some ice. Bring the pieces in.
Yep.
Break them down, spread them out.
We used a hand grinder, which was an absolute
bolted to a folding down table.
Listen, it wasn't great, but we did it.
We did many, many animals with a literal free grinder. A couple of whatever knives we had around. Yeah.
We made it work.
And
we have perfected.
And we see people that, well, I couldn't do X or Y because, well, I don't have like the kitchen set up. And it's like, I guarantee you have more kitchen than we did.
Right. Or, there's a lot of people who think you have to, for the chickens, there's like this giant process and all these things. It's not. Again, I have one knife. And it's not even a good knife. It's just the one I use.
No, it was like a $2 knife.
For some reason, that's the one I always want. And a folding table and a hose.
Yeah.
And that's it. And a string hanging from a tree.
We have never, chicken plucked, fingered.
Nope. I plucked one chicken once and decided that was...
We have never done the giant vat of water to scald an animal.
No. So when you get just the practical side of, I can't. I just can't. You can. Anyone can. No, I don't know how. It's fine. You don't need to know how.
We didn't either.
You cut the meat off the bone. Great.
And
that's your literally that's it.
And you'll end up with this is a good chunk. Save it as a chunk. Be like, this is a bunch of little stuff. Save it as little chunk to make
or grind the entire animal. You still have meat.
And it's good meat.
And that's the thing. People get very stuck on
well, I didn't
the
do it right.
practicality of I can't do it.
It's still food.
It's still food. there's many conversations about just have food. It's still food. If you can eat it and it tastes good, that's great. Nobody else cares.
Yeah, just be clean about it,
Yeah.
and you're good.
I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. I can't imagine meat from a processor. I mean, we get it.
And we've heard the horror stories. People get, a different animal back, and they're like, looking at it, and I'm like, like something, one was a cow, and they're like, the rib length is wrong. Like my cow genetically had short little ribs, and these ribs are like, that's somebody else's animal. They literally just mixed it up because there's so many hanging.
Or they get something back, and there's like not all the lard there should be from a pig.
Yeah, like where's the rest of this, or or it tastes like something different because they're just animal after animal on their tables and their knives and their things. They're not cleaning, but and then there's all of if you get ground, like there's all of their grinding equipment, which we're fairly meticulous about cleaning and things and making sure that it is.
And of course, there are going to be processors that do a very good job.
There are,
but you are then putting.
But they're all
in someone else's
very
hands.
Busy and very overworked. And I don't care who you are. Anybody that is absolutely like racked out many months in advance and overworked struggles to do a thorough and artisan grade job.
And the reality is, no matter how good of a butcher you are, no matter how much you care about your job, you do not care about that animal the way the person who raised it did. So you can't.
No.
You can't.
You don't.
You wouldn't be able to have that job if you cared that much about every animal. It's just it wouldn't work.
A butcher's going to use a bandsaw.
Not all.
Most will run through bandsaw. So these little bone fragments, things, destroy some of the bones. We don't own a bandsaw. We would own a bandsaw, not for meat. There's a long story there.
But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of this could go on forever about how I feel. I'm incredibly passionate about this, but the moral side of it,
the naming and the caring for, that is the real the contrary. And then sending it away,
there's an incredible amount of stress.
Is this different than saying I want a product, some little electronic, but it can't be made where I'm at because it's far too polluting to make the electronics. So we're going to have it made somewhere else where we don't see it, and it's not here, and therefore now I can have fancy little thing, and it's totally great because the pollution is somewhere else.
Yes, it is very similar.
You've simply outsourced the thing, or outsourced the job of work to some other soldier.
You've outsourced the discomfort of the thing, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm a huge advocate for learn to process your own animals.
And it's not because we like the extra work. Like this isn't. I mean,
I'm looking into doing this in like the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm tired thinking about it because it's a lot of work.
It's a ton of work. But there's also incredible satisfaction.
Yes.
Of seeing the full process, doing it ourselves, making sure that everything that could possibly go right goes right, and it is the best possible thing for our family. We eat the highest quality meats.
And our animals have the highest quality life.
They do.
And they're happy.
So and then it's is that worth the time I spend in? Well, what else are you going to do with your time except take care of your family and your life and your health?
A lot of people would sit and watch TV instead
of... You could send the animal out and sit and watch TV or futz around on Facebook on the couch.
I mean, that doesn't sound bad some days. But the reality is that isn't the life that we want.
No.
And so if I guess that maybe that just comes down to what you want in life. There's plenty of people who don't want to raise and butcher their own animals. But if you're raising the animals, you should be seeing that process all the way through.
Now there's other people, and I remember reading the thing of if you can't, when you get chickens, if you can't realize that something is wrong with the chicken and cull the chicken, put the chickens back in the box and take them back to Tractor Supply. Mm-hmm. Don't even get them if you can't make these decisions.
That's true. We've had to make that decision with animals.
We have also gone to heroic and crazy lengths to save animals that we were then just going to later process.
Yeah.
from infections to injuries to
unknown diseases to like.
Yeah, we're out there with things, we're dealing with stuff, we're so while we could make that decision, it's not like, oh, well, there's something wrong with the animal, call, and we see it all the time. We're looking at problems with, with the goat or with the chicken or thing. Oh, call the animal.
No.
No. No. Because I care for the animal.
Yeah.
Like it's. So no, we'll figure out the answer. We'll learn to be a vet if we have to.
We've had to many a time. I mean, the saving of the little piglet that's out there now is like a 100 and some pound creature.
Yeah.
Was that fun? Was that easy?
Oh no, he was going down. She was going down.
It was bad. Screaming little piglet.
So we do not take that answer lightly. Like we'll go to those heroic lengths.
And then we're going to also be the one to end the pig's life, which is, yes, it's a little strange. Yes, it's difficult. Maybe that's just the sort of the crux of the whole thing. It's okay if it's hard. People don't like hard things.
People don't like hard things. They want everything to be easy.
And sending an animal away for someone else to do the dirty work
in the modern convenience-based world. I want my food delivered, my groceries delivered. I want to get dates on my cell phone. I want this. I want to I just want it all here. Like now, I just don't have to do anything. Maybe we're just old-fashioned.
We'd rather do the hard thing.
We'd rather do the hard thing. So that's our opinion. But it is a controversial conversation. Please respond, comment. Like tell us your story. Tell us and why. Get into why. Like don't
just say you shouldn't eat meat.
Or I think you're wrong. No, it doesn't further the conversation.
Yeah, we'd like to have conversation about this.
If you think it's right or wrong, comment. So that's been a controversial conversation, Chris and Elizabeth. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe we'll see you for the next one.